In the heart of a lush green forest, a generous squirrel and a selfish fox lived. The squirrel was a cheerful little creature, always hopping from branch to branch, gathering nuts and berries. He was known for his kind heart, always willing to share his food with his fellow forest dwellers. His generosity knew no bounds, and his actions painted a picture of compassion and brotherhood within the woodland. On the other hand, there was the fox. Cunning and sly, he was the epitome of selfishness. He hoarded food and never offered to share any of his bounty with the other animals. His days were spent in solitary, focused only on himself and his needs. He was a stark contrast to the squirrel, leading a life of isolation and self-interest. The squirrel, with a heart full of kindness, was loved by all, while the fox, with his selfish ways, was often alone. These two creatures, living in the same forest, led lives as different as night and day. One day, nature decided to test their virtues. A harsh famine had swept through the forest, leaving all its inhabitants desperate and hungry. It was a time of trial, a time when true characters were revealed. In the midst of these hard times, the squirrel, with his heart as big as his fluffy tail, continued to share his remaining food with the fellow animals. Despite his own hunger, he gave away his last acorns, choosing generosity over his own comfort. On the other side, the fox, with his sharp eyes and cunning mind, chose a different path. He hoarded his food, clutching onto it like a precious treasure, refusing to share even a morsel with anyone else. As days passed, the other animals started to notice the stark contrast between the squirrel and the fox. They saw the squirrel's generous spirit shining brightly, even in the darkest of times. Despite the hardship, the squirrel's kindness radiated, while the fox's selfishness became more evident. As days passed, a magical event unfolded, revealing the true reward of generosity and the consequence of selfishness. Our generous squirrel, who had shared his food without a second thought, found himself gifted by nature. A tree unlike any other sprouted near his dwelling. This was no ordinary tree. It was a magical tree, providing food all year round, a gift from nature recognizing the squirrel's kind heart. On the flip side, the selfish fox who hoarded food without a care for others faced a sudden misfortune. A fierce flood swept through the forest, taking away his stash of food. The fox was left with nothing. The forest animals watched these events unfold. They praised the squirrel for his generosity and shunned the fox for his selfishness. The contrast between the two could not be starker. In the end, the generous squirrel lived happily with abundance, while the selfish fox learned a tough lesson about the importance of sharing and kindness.